Okay, welcome all to this Armidale Regional Council meeting of the 29th of June. So we have a number of our colleagues online, which is great, and we're going to bat on with that to make sure that it runs as smoothly as possible. To get underway, I'd like to call upon Councillor Mepham to read the civic affirmation.
I'm on. Civic affirmation. We, the councillors of the Armidale region, declare that we will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of our community and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us to the best of our skill and judgment.
Thank you, Councillor Mepham. And Councillor Robinson, could I call upon you for the acknowledgement of country?
We acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Armidale regional community pays tribute to their love of land, love of people and love of culture.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. I'd now ask the General Manager to make a statement in relation to live streaming of the council meetings and mobile phones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recordings of the non-confidential parts of the meeting will be made available on the internet. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by council to do so. Can we ask that all mobile phones please be either switched to silent or turned off for the duration of the meeting? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. I have not received any apologies or requests for leave of absence, although I do note that three of the councillors are attending via Zoom. And councillors, can I ask, having reviewed the agenda, do any of you need to declare a conflict of interest? No, thank you. Okay, we'll just move to item 5.1. which is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 25th of May 2022. I'll call for a mover for that. Councillor Redwood, and a seconder can be Councillor Mepham. Thank you. Any comment to make, councillors, on those minutes? Nothing. Thank you. All right, I'll put that to a vote just to confirm the minutes. All in favour? Thank you. I declare that unanimous. Thank you, as well as the onliners. Councillors, we move to item 8.1 of the agenda. So, for those, Councillor O'Brien.
Yes, I'd like to move this motion, and I would like to speak to the motion and in response to community feedback suggest a small amendment to section A. Okay, just first of all I want to thank the General Manager and his leadership team and all the staff for the incredibly hard work that this took and the skill to create this plan that's so necessary for getting us back on track. And their detailed responses to the community and all that entailed. Very appreciative. I also want to thank my fellow councillors for their really astute input and negotiations and teamwork, for getting such a huge job out to the public. I'm not sure if the community realise what a mammoth task this is, and many staff actually work from their sick beds to complete it and get it in for you today. So I think it's important to state that. However, it would be remiss of me as a representative of the community not to note the feedback on two issues in particular. One of these is the rail trail and the other is air quality. On the rail trail we had 15 submissions, 13 of which were opposed to the rail trail, and we're wanting to see the reopening of the Northern Line to Queensland. On the rail trail, as I think everyone knows, I've never been convinced of its overwhelming community support, which is one reason I have not supported it. However, the staff response, and my advice to you, is to lobby the state government to investigate the development of this line and the implementation of this in their future regional development plans. There'll never be political will without political pressure. Council, as they've said, is not in charge of this line. The state government is. So if Council, I know, believed of its possibility they would be going down this track, so to speak, So it's up to you to make it happen, so I suggest no amendment for this. I don't think there really is a point. On the healthy air, almost half the community submissions, 24 out of 57 people, we've received asked for more action on air quality, and no one asked for no action, but that would be unusual. This 100% consistent with last year's council resolution to develop a healthy winter air strategy and to endorse the World Health Organisational air quality guidelines. So very little additional resourcing, I believe, will be required. Of course, we might need your feedback on that because these strategies were already on the books and part of Project Zero 2030 commitment is that the Armidale LGA will have winter air quality levels below the Department of Health's guidelines. And Council did receive a letter from Dr. David Durham, Director of Director Health Protection, Hunter New England Population Health, advising that reducing the pollution would have a positive impact on health, and I think that would be obvious. So the changes that I would like to see, or the amendment in section A, in the community, I think we already have it up, yes.
So, Councillor O'Brien, you're
Yes.
seeking to move what is on the screen
Yes.
as the motion?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for, thank you, Councillor O'Connor? Now that is a motion on foot, Councillor O'Brien, would you like to speak to it, or do you consider you have spoken?
No, I've spoken, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor, as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Only briefly, I've recently had a purple air monitor put into my house in Marsh Street, and it's inside. I don't light a fire there, but I'm absolutely shocked at the readings that are coming in every night that triple exceed what the government has set as a safe standard of air quality. Now, Council has been trying to do something about this for probably the past 20 years, Council in its various forms. We've had air quality working groups as part of the environmental committees for many years, and we've also had a mayor's working group for the whole of the last term, which has put in a report. There's no need to reinvent the wheel here. We're now in a different position as a result of Dr. Durham's Hunter New England Health advice to us. We have shared responsibility with the state and federal government, but I think we now need to act, and the action can be as simple as developing a healthy winter air business case, which I think needs to be added as a specific into the delivery program and the other documents in the IPNR. So that's why I'm supporting this. We really don't have any more time to prevaricate. I think that's the right word, or at least to dawdle on this. And so I commend this amendment to my colleagues.
Thank you. Council, is anything... just a moment. Councillor Galletley. Councillor O'Connor, could you please turn off your microphone?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galletley.
This, I'd like to say it surprises me, but it doesn't. I'm looking at this, and I'm sort of going back to where I've been through this before. This is part of that. I'm looking around and seeing there's not too many I'm a little bit flabbergasted this is coming up again, and we're wasting all this time, money to do stuff. Reinstalling the purple air monitors, what are we going to achieve there, except it's going to take quality time from the staff, money? Look, I can't believe that this is brought up again. This has been going for years and years and years. We've got stuff to do in this place. Here we are. I haven't even been I don't even know anything about this. No one has discussed this with me before this meeting. Well, thank you for trying to call me, Deborah. We have got emails and stuff like that. As I said, I'm not surprised at all. But anyway, I'll go through what I really think. I thought we were going to play as a team in this new council. Obviously, that doesn't happen and will not happen while we've got people undermining us like this. This is why we've got the general manager's on the report, that we can sit there and talk to him on the Monday nights about this. This is just bloody bullshit, excuse the language.
Councillor Gallatley, I will have to caution you on the language.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about this. Look, colleagues, I'm very disappointed with the new fellas as well. This is secret squirrel stuff. I've got no email on any of this stuff. It's not good. This is going back to where we were in the past. The public, we've put this up for a month, and now we're changing it at the last minute. Why at the last minute? Why not bring it up on Monday night that this is what you're wanting to do? How has this motion come together? I mean, I can see how it's come together. But it's wrong. It's wrong. The money. How about these? Deborah's just given, or Councillor O'Brien has just given a really great thing. How good the executive and all that working so hard to do this. Why do this to them at the end of the line? This is just. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I haven't finished yet. I don't know whether I've got a minute or two left.
Just if you could keep your comments to the.
All right.
To the
Right.
matter,
I'll calm
would be
down.
great.
I'll calm
Thank you.
down. Sorry about that. This is. But you've got to understand. I've been through this before. This isn't the first one here. Everyone. I don't know. I mightn't be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I tell you what. I'm asking. Where's the business case on this? I seem to remember that Councillor O'Connor was going to do a business case. So obviously we've got the business case, and I haven't seen it to get this going to where it is. And this I don't even know what I've got written down here because I didn't know that this was coming. We're going back. They're trying to pull the wool over the community's eyes.
Councillor Gallatley, I do have to caution you on making aspersions about.
Okay, making
fellow
aspersions.
councillors.
Why was the public left out of this for a start? That's one of my questions. No.
Sorry. I do have to listen to a point of order.
One, the community this is where we're getting it from, the community. Secondly, this was raised on Monday night. At our briefing, it was raised. So I don't know why you didn't hear it. And thirdly, the reason it keeps coming up is because, John, people like you keep not listening. So this is ridiculous that council has been aspersions cast at councillors for fighting for what is a reasonable, we've spoke to the General Manager about it, reasonable insertions of a capacity to keep an eye on our air pollution, which is high. This is not an unreasonable thing to do. And I don't think we should be casting aspersions on councillors for doing their job here. You haven't been left out of it. You've always shown this attitude, so what would be the point? And it was raised Monday night.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Look, I do have the Councillor O'Brien, the same thing. Please do not cast aspersions back. And I really caution both Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Gallatley, and every councillor just to take the heat out of your comments. It does not serve you well, and it certainly doesn't serve our community well.
Sorry, I apologise.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just go back. Councillor O'Brien had her point of order. Have you concluded that? Thank you.
There's a correction too about Monday night. That was wrong. We did actually bring it up Monday night.
Thank you.
This was not brought up on Monday night. They're putting this up here. I really am speechless that here we are, we've gone through the budget, we've worked everything with the staff, and this comes up like this. I believe it's secret squirrel stuff, leaving me out of the whole thing. Yes, but I get reminded all the time through everyone that it's a democracy. Everyone's allowed to have their opinion. I couldn't be any more disappointed with the whole lot of this. And if we can just go spending money willy-nilly without it being in the budget or putting up there, I'm afraid we're just going back to where we were. So I couldn't be more disappointed than what I am with pretty well everybody here in the council room at the present. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallatley. Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, it's clear that this is an important issue to the community. It's an important issue for the council to consider. And to the point, which may be what Councillor Gallatley is coming at, is that, yes, he's been involved in it for a long time and has the benefit of exploring that with former councillors and current councillors today, and not so with necessarily the current councillor cohort as a whole. It is such an important aspect, and I think that it deserves, therefore, the time for it to be developed within the council cohort on a much broader case, and I don't think that rushing it through today is actually what we should achieve. This amendment hasn't had enough time in the water, as far as I'm concerned, or in the air, to be aired out appropriately, and therefore I think we should just caution ourselves against rushing in right here, right now, whatever the merit of the amendment may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Before we move to others, I should point out this isn't an amendment. This is actually a motion that's been put up there. It differs to the recommendation that was in our business papers, and I will just actually indulge myself for a moment. What this item is about is that the documents of the integrated planning and reporting documents have all been on public exhibition since our meeting on the 10th of May. And those documents included the community plan for the 10-year period from 2022 to 2032. They included the operational plan, the revenue policy, the fees and charges. We're being asked to endorse those documents. We're also being asked to note the proposed general fund operating at a deficit and a drawdown on our reserves of $2.5 million. We are being asked to endorse a commencement of a community engagement process on a special rate variation. This item 8.1 is really, really significant for this community, and I can understand there is some heat in it, and what's being asked here is for one small change to the community plan. So I'd be somewhat disappointed if all of our energy and effort go into a small change of the community plan. I understand where we're coming from. Councillor Gallatley, I'll come to you later. So I just make that comment, but we'll just put this up. I'll let the other councillors, we have some on the screen to raise their hands, who have raised their hands to make comment. I think we'll hear all of those. We can then vote on what is on the screen, what is the motion, and that it's not an amendment, it is the motion. And if need be, we can go back to a recommendation. So thank you. I'm looking at Councillor Widders. You have your hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Wasn't going to speak too much today because I'm not feeling the best, but just on what I've reading through this, what's on the screen at the moment and what's been said, I find it funny that some councillors have mentioned being kept in the dark. It seems to be something that's been going on for a while. You can't be on one side and then complain when you're on the other side of it. So I think we need to move on from that. The second thing is, from what Councillor O'Brien said when she moved the motion, that This amendment has come from what was put in through the community submissions. So I think that's a good example of listening to the community and working with what they've said. That's the whole point of putting these sorts of things out on to public submission, is to get ideas from the community and then putting some of their ideas into the final motion, which is what we have the right to do. As you stated, Mr. Mayor, there is a lot more than just what's written in the yellow there in regards to this, and as has been mentioned, a lot of work has been put into this, and we really need to look at the overarching achievements of what all this is trying to get us towards, and a lot of it's getting back to basics principles that the council's been looking to run. So we probably don't need to let a windy eye in the foot stop us from running our 100-metre run, if that makes sense.
Councillor Robinson.
I just want to say one quick thing on the bit in yellow, and that is really that this was never about spending money. It was about obtaining a business case to attract grant funding and make us a much better and healthier place to live. So whoever thinks it's about spending money, it's not. It's about getting money for this region so we can grow and prosper. And all the other things I wanted to say were about the operational plan and the budget, and I'm certainly supporting them, because we have to get these approved by the end of June. And certainly there's still a lot of work to be done. We've got the budget, we've got the ideas. We now have to work on the SRV, and we also have to work on having a safe and secure water supply. And I'll do my damnedest to ensure that we get the public consultation so that people in this community can have their input on both these really important issues, whether they're facilitated by council or the Public Works Authority. And I also hope that by the time we do start work on the SRV, maybe our finances will have been able to attract grant funding, and our finances will actually look a little bit more rosy. And as Councillor O'Brien said at one of the public meetings, if we get lots and lots of lovely grant money, then maybe we won't need the entire SRV, at least in the first few years. So either way, and maybe that will also be the advice of, we're dependent on IPART as well, so maybe that will be the advice of IPART. Our job is to look after our community and get the grant money in as well as we can. And we've done such a tremendous job so far with all the money for Kempsey Road, 237 million with raising the dam wall. I mean, we have to congratulate the staff on all these really important issues. And I really do hope we have a rosy future and the best possible health and quality of life. And that was really what the amendment was about, just saying that we are listening to the community. Almost half those submissions said they wanted cleaner air. Let's listen to the community. Let's not be divided. Let's get the case to have a grant funding and a healthy winter air strategy so that everybody here will be happy and we won't have to argue about this anymore. If we continue arguing and get nothing done, then we'll be in the same position and we'll be turning away more and more residents, and that isn't what we want for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Peckham, I see your hand is back up.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sort of requesting leave because this is such a broad bundled topic. You know, the right to speak once and once only is sort of, it's a bit beyond our thing here. My point is that if, and with all due respect to the number of submissions, there were lots of submissions rejecting the 50% rate rise, for instance. So that didn't get as part of this now substantive motion. And so I'm struggling with the fact that, you know, if we were doing it on the basis of how many submissions were done for which topic, we would then have a much broader topic, to a much more broader, you know, A, B, C, through to Z probably. In general, and now that we're back to I'd like to make my general comments about the bundle and moreover things. I'm not sure about whether what I'm about to say is a word of caution or a history lesson or both, but I'd like leave to read a passage, and I'll just have a little digression for a minute, of what is the 1955 Armidale Universal Directory. And I'll just if my fellow councillors would just indulge me for a minute, I'd just like to read a passage. It will take a little minute.
I'm now curious about your library, but
Yes, my library, and how, yeah, it's not digital, obviously. Founded on the 30th of September 1839, proclaimed a city on the 20th of March 1885, it is beyond question one of the state's leading and most unique of our country towns, being Armidale, of course. Well named the city of churches and one of the state's rich wool-growing centres. Armidale has little or no industrial trade to supplement its wool and agricultural products. Instead, education and culture provide the additional source of activity so vital to maintain a city of this size and obvious wealth. With 6 major colleges, 7 preparatory schools, a teachers' training college which houses the world-famous Hinton Art Gallery, the outstanding gallery of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere, and the famous New England University, and the Armidale Technical Training College, all set in spacious grounds amid a sea of trees of all descriptions, Armidale has little need to look to industry as a source of additional wealth to cater for its present population. Yet with the completion of the Oakey River hydroelectricity scheme to produce 2,500 kilowatts, and the growing interest from outside in this beautiful city with its vigorous, virile, health-giving climate, it is natural that in the near future industry will play a large, if not leading role in the way of life of the capital of New England. How far it appears that we've fallen. Mr Mayor, nearly 70 years has passed and a generation after generation have missed the mark and missed the measure of what it will take for our region to thrive beyond current generations. Mr Mayor, let's take this opportunity to make bold decision to attend to the systemic issues facing our region, facing our council and facing our residents. If we are to ask our residents for such a bold move and to make such a commitment, then we must guarantee that we'll challenge the business as usual norms and our rules of doing business and hold ourselves accountable to it, so that in the end of the current term, our current council term, there is a pathway out of the decline that seeks to insulate ratepayers from the types of burden presented in this proposal. Mr Mayor, pleased, I can't say I'm pleased under the circumstances to be presenting a deficit budget. Let's not forget the financial improvement order that's hung over the head of this council in its previous iteration. But my concerns are allayed by the fact that Before Depreciation Council is in fact presenting an operating surplus of some $15 million. Indeed, it's the acute lack of funding for the capital budget that results in the deficit proposal, and therefore with the initiatives that council are presenting to rebuild the foundations for a stronger council and a stronger community, that I will support the 2022-23 budget and the proposal to consult with the community around the 50% rate variation phased in over 3 years. Mr Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted a little bit of procedural...
Yeah, point of order, Councillor Witters.
2 points of order, just based off the thing. One is we need to follow the code of meeting practice, although I agree with Councillor Packham that it's a fairly wide-ranging issue. Being able to speak twice without being the mover of the motion is against the code of meeting practice. I can find it for you. Otherwise, we could be here all night toing and froing over each individual issue out of what's to be raised. So I think that one needs to be addressed first. I think we need to really make sure that we follow the code of meeting practice on how it's set out in our guidelines, and that we otherwise, as I said, it could get out of hand on just on this issue. You could be here for 2 to 3 hours backwards and forwards.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. I note what you say. I suspect we won't be here for 2 or 3 hours. As the chair, I will keep things moving. However, I agree with Councillor Packham in that what we're about to decide, and I'll go back to what I said before, this is probably the most significant thing that we will vote on as a council, getting these documents through, particularly when it comes to our finances. So I think we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the community that we're all heard. But I note your point of order, and if that is considered an egregious breach of the code of meeting practice, then I'm prepared to suffer that breach and come what may of it. Thank you.
Well, you may, someone may have to move a motion to move into open session if you're going to allow continual comments. Otherwise, you look like
This is not a conversation.
it's still part of my point of order. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. To allow free and flowing open conversations, I think that we need to move into an open council so that conversations can be had on each point that people want to make.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. I will keep an eye on that. Thank you. Councillor O'Connor, as you were.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think it might be pertinent to Councillor Witters' concern. I was just asking for some direction in relation to procedure at the moment. I have something I wish to say about another part of the IPNR, which is the rail trail trains issue. But I think you indicated to us that we're in a separate motion at the moment, just dealing with the items in yellow on the screen.
No, we're not. That became the substantive motion when Councillor
Right,
O'Brien
okay.
moved it. Thank you. And you had spoken.
I only spoke to the proposed amendment. I didn't speak to the other issues that do concern me in relation to the package, which is part of the entire thing. I don't know. You can exclude me if you wish, and I'll express myself in other places, or I can say something quite briefly now.
Councillor O'Connor, I will indulge you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I press the points that I made before in relation to the proposed amendment, which is on the screen, and particularly note that I'll reiterate what Councillor Robinson and I think Councillor O'Brien has said, is that there's Councillor Gallatley has not really referred to the content of the amendment as put up, which is basically just to get a business plan and to get some money in from outside. It's not going to impose any additional cost or burden on council at the moment, and that's all I want to say about that. In relation to the item, I propose to support the whole package. I've thought about it and I've lost sleep on it because I'm extremely disappointed in the response in relation to the issue of the rail trail, which is maintained there as an action in the delivery program. I think this is the most vandalous proposal, and I do believe that there's a very serious element that's missing from the proposal contained within the delivery program, and that is that there's been no community consultation in relation to the action in relation to the rail trail, which is proposed in the delivery program, which I'm going to vote for. And I want to make it very clear that I do not agree with that, and I will continue to take a different view, as I think is my right. But I just want to say my counting is slightly different to Councillor O'Brien's. I think of the 59 submissions that we've received, 19 of those were either critical of the rail trail, rejecting it, or proposing trains. It's a little bit over 30%, and there were 2 that mentioned support for the rail trail. I think it's very clear, even in this sort of unfocused exercise, that there's a very, very strong desire for trains to return to the Northern Railway line, and there's also a very strong concern about the impact that a rail trail would have in making that impossible. And I think that the percentages, as reflected in this little incident, are basically over 30% to a bit under 3%. So I just think council's really off the beat of the community on this one, and that's not surprising because there has been no consultation, and there was one run by Department of Premier and Cabinet many years ago in relation to a different rail trail proposal, which was roundly rejected by the community at that point. And I just would like to point out that even in the most recent second reading speech by the Honourable Sam Farraway, who was introducing a new bill to the New South Wales Parliament, he said that the New South Wales Government supports in principle councils developing rail trails where they want to, and the recreational use of disused rail corridors. So that's the New South Wales Government's position, but there's an enormous proviso in this speech, which I think we've missed, and I think to our detriment as a council, you know, purporting to reflect and support the wishes of our community. And that is the proviso is where there is strong demonstrated community support and a viable business model in place. And that there are other provisos which I won't go into now, all of which we do not meet at the moment. So I think this is, apart from the fact that there's been some proposal for some grant funds from the federal government or from our federal local member, other than that, this is a most ill-advised item to be included in the delivery program because we do not meet the criteria for any kind of forward action in relation to a rail trail. I know that's not always a popular view, but it is definitely a widespread view in the community, as is indicated by this 19... Excuse me. All right, well, I'll wrap up quite quickly because I'm pretty clear about what my 5 minutes amounts to. I just want to let the community know that the responses that are noted in the attachments to community submissions are not consulted with elected councillors. They're the responses that come from our staff, and that's all very well and good. But the fact is that I just want to question that the standard response is, yes, transport was mentioned in all levels of consultation, the need for better transport, and yet when it comes to people asking for trains, when we've got an existing railway line that could easily be upgraded sufficiently to provide the equivalent of a light rail, at least to get us moving between Uralla, sorry, we've got a train there, north, up to Gaia and beyond, you know, the resilience with which staff have said, well, yeah, we want transport. The community clearly wants transport, but they haven't really mentioned Transport North. I think that's just a pretty fragile response. And I just want to say that, to also say that council does not own or manage rail infrastructure doesn't really ring true, given that we are in the process of lobbying to state and federal government for water. We don't own water, the state government does, and yet we're asking for them to assist us with large grant funding to give us a secure water supply, and rightly so. Similarly with the runway, we've got another document here, I can't see myself, which is used to lobby federal government for funds for a second runway. We all know that aviation is not really a local government responsibility, it's a federal one largely in terms of fiscal provision, and yet we don't sort of say, use that reasoning to say we can't do that lobbying. So on that basis, I just want to say that, you know, and I think there are others around this table, we don't support and we don't think the community supports the inclusion of those items in the delivery program, but nevertheless, I know the community really wants us to work as a team, and I'm going to support the whole package with those, my concerns about equality and my concerns about transport and rail transport noted.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I can't see any other hands raised. Councillor Gallatley, just a quick one.
Thank
if
you.
you may.
It won't take too long. I will apologise for my bit of an outburst. It came up on me. I wasn't ready for this, and it's not an amendment. It's a motion, which, and I think we've heard it more than once just in this little time, that this is a very significant thing that's been worked on for a long time. I really don't appreciate this getting thrown at me at this meeting today without any previous indication of it. I don't think that I think it would only be polite to ask the staff and the executive if they have got the resources and the capacity to do this at this particular time, and how much will it cost. I'd love to believe what everyone's what the past council have said, that it won't cost any money, but I'm having a little bit of trouble thinking about that, because I do know that time is money, but for some of them that probably isn't. But I'd just like to know if there has been a business case done on this. Councillor O'Connor, just check through some stuff, and Councillor O'Connor back before this council was put together, said that she would put a case together, a case together to do this in November last year. I'm wondering if that has came to fruition and if that's something else that they've failed to give me that I could take into account before I vote on this important motion. Can I ask, has there been a business case done on this motion, with that's for in the future, I suppose, but yeah. Thank you for letting me have a little say, and I do apologise for being emotional about it first off, but this is not the first time this has happened in my first term in council. Thank you.
We get the point. Look, you can ask that question. I really am concerned we're getting into the weeds about something that is minuscule compared to what we're seeking to do. If Chief Officer Manners or anyone knows has an answer to the business case, but I think it's a little obtuse. But this is about developing a business case, as I understand it, developing a business case to put before state and federal government to seek grant funding. So, are you aware of?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we are not aware of any business case that's been prepared.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. What I will say is there is a regional energy action plan being prepared at the moment, and this will be a workshop with councils. There will be time to be able to take a look and then maybe consider the healthy winter air component of that and see whether it fits into that plan. So I'll just reassure councils will have the opportunity to do so outside of this meeting.
Thank you. Chief Officer Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Councillor Gallatley, I can say there's a draft business case that Councillor Robinson, Councillor O'Connor and I will be doing a page turn on in the next fortnight or so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Redwood.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make two comments. One was about some dialogue that Councillor Robinson had earlier, and also about Councillor O'Connor. So Councillor Robinson, you said that about grant funding and the potential for grant funding or little presents from other people going to be the solution for our future, and I don't think that that's ever going to be the case. And I think we've had long discussions about the fact that we need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, and that grant funding might follow if we can demonstrate that we're solvent in our own right. So I think that it's suggesting that love, trust and pixie dust might be the answer to our future, and I just don't think that's the case. So I think we have to be very realistic about that, and also ensure that we're working towards a solid future by making the right plans ourselves and then relying on others. And to Councillor O'Connor's point about the community, she said the community is against the rail trail. Part of the community might be, but I think that there's also definitely part of the community that's not. So I think we should be careful about the suggestion that the community is against something or the community is for something. I think we should be, respectful to the parts of the community that are represented in whatever the view is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redwood. Councillor Gadders, I can see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've been intensely listening to my colleagues and appreciate all their comments and feedback. I do, I guess, go back to something which is, the crux of this particular item, which is for us to make a large decision around the IPNR documentation and bring the council back to a more financially stable position. I appreciate the feedback of the community. We've had some very good ideas, as well as some ideas and feedback that weren't necessarily on topic to these particular budget discussions. But ultimately, I just wanted to make sure that the focus is on driving what I would see as the original recommendation and getting that done. I would therefore Mr. Mayor, like to ask a question, probably more a little bit about procedure. But I believe that, as we've said many times, what we're looking at here is a motion. It's not an amendment. And in that case, I just wanted to be clear, if this particular language in yellow was voted against by the majority, what position would that put our IPNR documentation in? Do we need, and how would we move forward to make sure that that is assured?
Thank you, Councillor Gatters. We would go to the recommendation. I would seek someone to move the recommendation as it appears in our business papers, and which would be everything excluding the yellow documentation. I'd seek a seconder and then we'd vote on that.
Thanks for the clarity, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make sure we're still on point.
As always, may not always seem that way. Councillors, Councillor Robinson, you're either stretching or...
I just wanted to make a couple of points. I think this is a really, really important decision.
You may, but you have spoken. I have allowed others to speak, but if you could keep it on point, on topic, and bear in mind that we have heard a lot about the clean air
Yeah, no,
today.
I wasn't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, some people are confused about the finances and the budget. The main thing we have to talk about in this motion is the budget for 22-23. And there are two things. Councillor Packham very aptly said that we will have a 15 million surplus before depreciation, but we'll also be having a 2 million deficit when we include all our capital works. And this is something that this is the most important thing, and I believe we have enough money to cover this. And then all the other things we will be able to discuss when we talk about the SRV. That's a really, really important discussion for the community to have. We will be starting from a weaker financial position when we do it, but we still can look at the future budget and the future operational plan, future operational plans depending on that. And so that's all I say. And also the same for the water. We've got the 27 million now for raising the dam. And I think that the other thing that's really important is to say that local government, if we have expenses like 237 million on Kempsey Road, and we are expected to pay for that from our ratepayers, we'll never, ever be able to stand on our feet. We have to explain our situation to other levels of government and to track the grant funding that will make this place a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillors, I'd like to put the motion that is on the screen to a vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 5. That's 6-5. I declare that motion carried as it is on the screen. Thank you. So did we get everybody? She was a yes. He was a no. Councillors, can I just ask you to check that your vote is properly recorded there? Right. Thank you, councillors. With it is with
I can't see very well. I voted for it.
Thank you, Councillor McMichael. Yes, we've noted that. All right. Thank you, councillors. I note that was. You know, it was a big vote. It did become topical, but we got there. Congratulations. Item 8.2. Councillors, we move to item 8. Thank you, councillors. No cross-chat, please, would be, we all understand that. Thank you. Councillors, let's get back on track, please. Item 8.2, Risk Management Policy and Risk Appetite Standards. The details of this are from page 22 of the agenda and page 715 of the attachments. Council has endorsed a revised risk management report and the associated risk appetite statements for public exhibition. We have a recommendation on the screen which includes an amendment to what was the recommendation put forward by the officers. So do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Do I have a seconder for what is on the screen? Thank you, Councillor McMichael. Councillor Robinson, would you like to just speak to what you have moved?
Very briefly, the suggested change to just review the situation after 18 months was really discussed at our, or mentioned or recommended by the staff at our Monday night meeting, and it did seem to be that there was general support for this idea because the community really need, and this was also based on community feedback. And basically the trade-off between risk and reward is never easy. So I'm really, really comfortable about reviewing the situation and reviewing those trade-offs between risk and reward in 18 months' time and accept the recommendations in the meantime. So thank you very much for the staff for doing that, and let's hope that we have some good discussions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor McMichael, you were the seconder. Would you like to speak to this?
No, just to say that I agree with Dorothy, or Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak to this? If no, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour of adopting that policy? I can see 1, 2, 3. Thank you. I declare that motion carried unanimously. We now move to item 8.3, which is the Council Actions Report, which summarises the actions taken on resolutions of Council. So we're asked to note this report. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor O'Connor, and Councillor Robinson, I'll throw you down as the seconder. Nothing to speak, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Robinson.
Just to thank the staff for providing it because it's a very useful piece of information.
Thank you. I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, we move to item 9.1, the Cash and Investment Report. As at 31 May 2022. So the details are from page 310. No, they're not. Be a lot further on. Council is being asked to note the report and the updated end-of-year forecasts. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Gallatley, and Councillor Robinson, you can second that. All those, let's vote for it. All those in favour? Thank you. Are those against? Okay, I declare that carried unanimously. Item 9.2, the Rural Fire Services Asset Accounting Treatment. So this is a contentious issue amongst the majority of regional councils in that council is asked to carry the cost of the RFS assets but has no say over the acquisition, its use, deployment or control. So to many councils, this is viewed as an egregious example of cost shifting by state government. This issue is the subject of significant lobbying by a number of local government committees, groups, particularly the Country Mayors Association. So details of this item are provided from page 35 of the agenda and page 754 of the attachments. The recommendation that is put forward by the council officers is that we note the advantages and disadvantages of the various options for the accounting treatment of these assets, and we endorse the RFS assets to be recorded as non-current assets on our books. Do I have a mover of a motion that might be similar to the Thank you. Councillor Robinson, I can see a hint of yellow there on the screen.
Happy to move if Councillor Mepham does.
Yes. So what, Councillor Robinson, are you moving the motion that's on the screen, or would you like to move a motion?
I'd like to move the motion with the yellow bit included as well.
Could we scroll up, please? And so that's with an additional item C. You'll move that? I need a seconder for what's on the screen. Thank you, Councillor Mepham. So, Councillor Robinson, do you want to just speak to that?
Yeah, well, I'll speak to it, and then I hope Councillor Mepham will provide a little more information, because it is his baby, really, and it's important for him as a RFS because of his association with the RAF. But basically, in an ideal world, RFS assets would be owned by the RFS. So the best solution would be for local councils to convince the New South Wales government to make this change, rather than requiring our council to carry almost $500,000 of depreciation on our books. But the second best solution is to comply with the New South Wales Audit Office. We do not want to direct anger at us, so we have to comply with what we're instructed to do by the Audit Office. But note at the same time that we're dealing with an accounting artefact. The money to maintain or replace these assets comes from the RFS and from the other levels of government. It doesn't come directly from councils. So whether or not this depreciation is in our books should not be a decision, not be a consideration in any of our decision making. What really matters is our income, the money we actually spend on council operations, including maintaining our assets and acquiring new ones, and of course the condition of those assets. And that was one of the reasons why 10 councillors at the last meeting supported developing a way to present the finances in a format that councillors and interested community members will find much easier to understand. And I believe that is progressing well and will certainly help us make sensible and sound financial decisions, despite problems that the governments are throwing on us, such as this. So let's do what the government wants, but at the same time lobby for change, noting that this isn't the only problem with our accounting system. And Councillor Packham indulged himself with one little quote, and I'd like to give you another little quote just to finish off. A wise person once says that we can pollute our environment, our land and air and water, chop down our trees and endanger our wildlife, but still show increased GDP. That tells me that there is something wrong with our accounting systems. So let's do what we can to fix them by lobbying the state government. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mepham, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Just briefly, it's sort of made no sense to me with 20 years of management in the Rural Fire Service that council's expected to depreciate full value of the equipment that they only contribute 11.7% to. I don't know how you do that in accounting terms. I do know that councils all over the state have long wanted that to change, and I know that a lot of zone or district managers in the RFS were also in favour of having that clear delineation that the assets either the councils or it's the RFS, and if RFS has got control, then RFS should own the equipment.
Thank you, Councillor Mepham. Councillor McMichael, I see your hand is up. Would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thanks. Look, so as a council, we have a number of services. We do rates and roads and rubbish, that sort of thing. We have a number of community services that we, for want of a better word, look after. We work with all tiers of government, but as both Councillor Mepham and Councillor Robinson have mentioned, this is an accounting trick. We, as a council, have very few ways of actually getting money aside from raising rates, and depreciation is just an accounting trick. But it will show in our books, along with the other councils. We're not the only one. And it will look like we have less money than we do. And the state government will say, oh look, we've got a whole lot less money than a whole lot less debt than we did before. Woohoo! I think it's rude and mean of the state government to do so. And but look, you know, I mean, we need them, and when we want millions of dollars for courthouses and other things, we'll be asking and saying, hey, look, we've got a few fire trucks spare. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to echo Councillor McMichael's sentiments and the mover and seconder of the motion. It's imperative that we impress upon the preparers of our financial statements that a special note to the accounts be inserted that clearly identifies our position whilst we are being compliant, don't necessarily agree, and the impact therefore on our bottom line, showing that this has an impact which may present a loss to the public. We must also assure the public that our budget documents, which will necessarily include that depreciation charge in excess of the 11.7% contribution that council actually makes to the assets in any case, that's not to be funded by ratepayers and would not be funded by ratepayers in that circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to put the motion as it appears on the screen to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 10.1, the grids policy. So details of this can be found at page 58 of the agenda and page 799 of the attachments. So the gates and stock grids on public roads policy concerns itself with the ownership, maintenance and transition options. Council's being asked to delay the implementation of the policy and refer it to a key pillar working group for further review and further consultation. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Packham, and a seconder can be Councillor Mepham. Councillor Packham, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I applaud this move to push this policy out another 12 months for revision. Mr Mayor, the premise that gates and grids on a public road primarily generate a benefit to a landholder and represent a change in normal traffic conditions, the cost of which not burden the broader community, is arbitrary at best and fundamentally flawed, considering in the main, roads were built through privately owned land for public use, and notwithstanding our agriculture sector falls under the strict provisions of the Biosecurity Act, requiring segregation of livestock, and the sector represents one of the primary economic drivers that benefit the broader public in this region. Setting this policy aside for the time being until sensible heads prevail is sensible in itself, and I support deferring the implementation of the policy until it is revised and re-presented to the public for comment. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Councillor Mepham, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it is something that does need to be probably explored a little bit further. I've received phone calls both for and against, and some of that's centred around, I guess, the inequity of the two policies that we have, Armidale versus what Guyra has been used to for a long time. So there is some concern about how that's harmonised, and I think we probably do need to explore it just a little bit deeper. I have had people say to me they'd rather maintain a grid than fence their entire road, which was a requirement in Guyra Shire. Didn't necessarily apply to Armidale, so there is a reasonable amount of angst between the two different previous councils in that harmonisation process. So to take a better look at it, I think is commendable.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mepham. Any other comments? Failing that, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 10.2, the electricity contract for small sites. So this relates to a contract for the retail supply of electricity to small sites, details of which are on page 62 of the agenda or page 802 of the attachments. We have a recommendation on the screen around this procurement of electricity. Could I please have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Robinson, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Redwood. Anything to add, Councillor Robinson?
Well, I'd actually like to ask a question in relation to what we've got the daily charge for the the previous contract. I just wondered what the daily charge was for the current contract. If that's possible to ask Mr. Manners that through you. Mr. Schaefer, if you could respond, I believe we did have some comment there's
on this.
no particular hurry.
Thank you.
And the other thing, you want to, sorry.
Let's answer that question and then we can come back to you.
Yeah, through the Mayor, thank you. And thanks for the question. So if I could just get clarity on, you're after the daily charge for the current contract?
The current contract is 4.52 cents per kilowatt. I got 2.1, but we don't have it for the new energy rate.
Yeah, that I can't give you right now, unfortunately, Councillor Robinson. I'd like to be able to, but unless any of the finance team have it, who are here to hand, no.
Well, we'll answer it later. I mean, I think the main thing is that we discussed. It's really good that we're saving money on this contract, and I think that's one of the most important things because it gives us more money to do for other services. And we've also thought that in this, even given our current financial circumstances, we won't be able this year to buy green power, but we'll start thinking about this for the next financial year, and maybe also piggyback onto some of our community energy projects that we are thinking of doing and are in the planning process. So yes, it's good to save money, and perhaps in the next financial year we'll also be able to save the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's terrific. Councillor Redwood, anything to add? No, thank you. Any other councillors wish to say anything? Let's put that to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Looking at the screen, I declare that now carried unanimously. Item 10.3 is the draft catchment water quality strategic plan. So that a plan has been developed. The details from page 67 of the agenda and 841 of the attachments. Council is being asked to endorse the plan and place it on public exhibition. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor O'Connor, and a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Gallatley. Councillor O'Connor, anything to comment?
Sorry. No, I don't want to comment at the moment, just to urge the public to have a look at it.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Gallatley. He passes. Councillors, anyone wish to comment? Fantastic. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Two more items in this open session. Item 11.1 is the adoption of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, which has been on public exhibition, and Council is being asked to note the submissions received and adopt the plan. The details are page 70 of the agenda and 882 of the attachments. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, and a seconder can be Councillor Robinson. Councillor O'Brien, would you like to speak to that motion?
Not really, but just, no, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson? No.
Only to note, one of the submissions wanted a heated pool, and that our existing plan commits to seeking funding opportunities to make the Moncton Aquatic Centre and Gowrie swimming pool more accessible. So.
Thank you. Councillors, any comment or question? Let's put that to a vote. All those in favour of adopting the plan? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, the final item is the community recognition policy. So this policy has been on public exhibition. Councillors are asked to adopt this policy, noting that no submissions were received. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, and a seconder. Oh, that can be you, Councillor McMichael. I saw a yes there in your screen. Councillor O'Brien, do you wish to speak to this?
Not really, other than it's a great idea. It's a great idea to recognise our local heroes. Maybe a few statues of them and things like that would be nice. A little bit of artwork here and there. No, it's a wonderful idea. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McMichael, anything to add?
Oh, no, just that it's a terrific policy, and people should check out who you can actually vote for, and when you can actually vote for them, and who we actually do recognise in the region. There's some good people.
Thank you very much. Councillors, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour of adopting the policy? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, it is at 11 minutes past 5. I declare the end of the open session of the meeting, so thank you. I would now like to move into closed session. So can I have a motion, please, to move into a closed session? Councillor Redwood, that can be you, and Councillor O'Connor can be the seconder. So all those in favour of moving into closed session? Thank you. We have most of us. I'll declare that carried unanimously as well. So, councillors, there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 5:19. Let's, before I close it, sorry, as has been put... It was O'Connor. Councillors, before we close the meeting, I'll just read out that resolution that was in closed session, and that the resolution is that the council has endorsed the review panel's assessment of the general manager, his performance review as outstanding, with an overall average rating of 9.73 out of 10. Noting that the majority of KPIs were assessed as a significant strength. And point B, that the GM's remuneration increased by $10,000 retrospective to his anniversary date in January 2022, as per his accepted letter of offer of employment. And C, note that the Mayor and the General Manager will identify and discuss greater work-life balance opportunities as part of future performance review outcomes. Thank you. Councillors, there being no further business, I now really do declare the meeting closed at 5:20 p.m. Thank you.